Dobry den.
Dobry den.
And welcome back to our weekly catch-up in Bulgaria.
What have we done this week, Adam?
We've had a relaxed week this week, Adam. We've not done huge amounts, though we have done a few bits, which you'll see in the video later on. We didn't manage to go to Targovishti.
No.
We were waiting for a call from our local plumber, merchant, to let us know that he'd got some parts in that we're waiting for the water filtration system. But they're not in yet, so we thought...
we assume they're not in. He didn't ring.
He didn't ring. So maybe they are and he's forgot to ring, but I don't think so.
No.
I think he would have rang us. So we decided we'll put Targovishti trip off till next week because we had enough provisions in, didn't we?
We have indeed, yeah. So
we've just done what shopping we did need to do at the local shop, and we've taken some video of that. I'll walk down to the village. Probably not showing it in its best light because it is winter here now, so it is a bit bleaker than normal, and you've lost the greenery.
But the weather is still quite nice here, so
yes,
we've got blue skies.
We had until today, but yes, the weather over the last week has been lovely.
We thought we'd show you the centre of the village. This is Makariopolsko. I don't know if you call it a town square, but it's where the mayor's office is, the post office and the shop. This is the mayor's office at the front. The roads are very typical of Bulgarian villages. You can see the potholes and you have to drive quite carefully. There's a statue, we don't know who the statue's of, but he's obviously something important in Bulgaria. There's a different view of the mayor's office. There's a shop that appears to sell hardware and household goods. It was closed when we were at the village, so we haven't yet been in there. The door next to it is the post office. There's a lady there who rings us when we have post. She shouts "Posta" down the phone at us. We say "Blagodaria" and go and collect it. This is the remains of some sort of frieze that we assume celebrates memorable dates related to wars and conflicts, judging by what's left there, but we're not entirely sure. There's a deserted shop which appears to be used for storage, and then the entrance to the little local shop where we get our bread and milk. This is the town war memorial. There are 5 names on it with pictures, which is unusual, but we assume these are people from the village who died in the war. We don't know what this building is, but it's like a lot of the bigger buildings in the town. Whatever was there has left, and the building has been left in a derelict state. If anybody can translate this for us, we could actually find out what the building was. So far, we've been unsuccessful. A little way up the hill is the village church. We hear the bells on a Sunday morning. It's been recently renovated and looks to be in good condition. Opposite the church, we have the school. It's a very large school for the village. We understand that children are bussed in from different villages around to come to this school. It does seem to be a very large building for the number of children we've seen around the village.
Something else we've done this week is we started a batch of Sloe gin.
Yes, Adam had made up the gin as you saw in our last video, and we already had Sloes in the freezer.
As you've seen in a previous video.
So we thought we'd combine the two.
Yep. So we've started the process. It takes a while. We'll keep you updated as it continues on its journey from something that looks a bit dodgy in a jar to being delicious Sloe gin.
Yeah, we have made it before, but we did alter it a little bit this time.
But you'll see what I do as I do it.
It's time to use some of the sloes we picked a month ago to make some Sloe gin. The sloes have been frozen up until now. We've defrosted them and now they need lightly crushing and putting in the gin. Normally at this point you'd add sugar as well. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to allow the gin to extract the fruit flavour before I add the sugar. This way you get a better flavour from the sloes. Then you can sweeten the gin to the correct level without over sweetening. We rinse out the bowls with some of the gin just to make sure we get as much of the flavour and the juice as we can. This gin then gets added back to the litre of gin we started with, and that is then poured over the top of the sloes. The gin should cover the level of the sloes so that all of the fruit is submerged. This will in effect preserve the fruit as well as extracting all the flavour. You can see we're already extracting some of the colour from the sloes along with the flavour. Now this will be agitated a couple of times a day for the first week, then once a day for the next 2 or 3 weeks. This will now sit somewhere cool and dark while the gin extracts the flavour from the sloes.
The other thing we've done this week is start processing our wood for next year. We haven't actually got any video of us cutting trees down. We didn't feel that was a safe thing to do, did we?
You didn't know.
I certainly didn't.
No. So sorry, there's no pictures of me cutting down trees with a chainsaw.
The ones we cut down were quite near the house, and we just thought we ought to spend all our energies concentrating on where they fell rather than trying to video it.
And we didn't hit the house, so.
And we didn't hit the house.
So
we did catch the edge of the barn.
I wasn't going to mention that.
Yeah, but we did. We only bent it a little bit.
It'll bend back.
It'll bend back. It was quite fun watching Adam try to start the chainsaw on the first day.
Really?
He used it. It did take him about 5 hours. He kept flooding the engine. But it's all down to the instructions were wrong, weren't they, dear?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you didn't need to prime the pump
As much as I was
he was
priming the pump.
priming it. Which is what he told him to do in the book. But
In fairness.
there were several choice words.
No, you can't put that in. My mum might watch this. There were no choice words.
You did eventually get it going though, didn't you?
Eventually we got the chainsaw running. I could cut stuff down.
And in subsequent days we didn't have anywhere near the same.
I think I've learned how to do it now. So.
But it was a learning curve.
We have a lot of those. We haven't finished yet. We're just hoping the weather doesn't stop us. We're due some cold weather next week. So.
Yeah, the forecast for the next 2 weeks here is to get a lot colder. Let's say we've had really good weather up until today's our first rainy day, grey day. Very English today. English weather we call it. When we get a grey day, it's rare.
Exactly.
But it has been 14 degrees.
Oh,
15 degrees.
For the start of January, it's been lovely. So.
The garden is totally prepped now, I think, for next year.
Yep. See, it's not me who does all the work. Lynn does all the gardening and stuff. It just looks like it in the videos. She won't let
I
me
just make the tea.
She won't let me video apart from the occasional guest appearance.
I'm happy just to make the tea.
She does a lot more than that. But I'll edit that out.
This week we've been processing some wood. We've already taken down the trees. Now that the trees are down, they need to be cut up into smaller bits to enable us to move them and process them easily. The first step is to remove the smaller branches. I'm doing this with loppers. You can do it with a chainsaw, but once again we decided discretion was the better part of valour. It might take a bit longer, but it's safer than me wielding a chainsaw. Once we've removed the smaller branches, it's time to cut the bigger bits up into manageable chunks. I start by cutting any branch that isn't laying flat on the floor. These are easier to cut. You don't want to get the blade of your chainsaw in the dirt. It blunts it quickly and makes a mess. Once the wood is cut to suitable lengths, we transport it down to the barn. We arrange it in the barn in different piles. A pile to be cut with the chainsaw, a pile to be cut with the chop saw. We also have a large pile of sticks which will be chipped for putting on pathways, a small stack of wood that's been cut to length, and some of the offcuts and odds and ends. These will be chopped up into manageable chunks to be used on the fire. The wood is then marked to the correct length for the firewood with a little measure. I use a saw just to mark the wood, then it's ready for cutting with the chainsaw. Once I've got the protective gear on, the chainsaw's ready to cut the wood. The trick is to know exactly where it's balanced and just cut through. Here's a larger chunk, works exactly the same. Again, we've got 11-inch lengths, which seems to be the right length for our stove. It will then be split into either halves or quarters. These will then be ready to go on the fire once they've seasoned, ready for next year. As with any job, one of the most important parts is refreshment. A nice hot cup of tea is always welcome.
In cat news, the Major's been into the kitchen now. Tried stealing Ziggy's food.
Yes, he's totally quite okay with us now. We can stroke him, we can pat him, and he will quite happily follow us into the house. We're not overly sure about having him in the house.
Not yet, but...
because I don't think he's been vaccinated or wormed or anything like that, and he's a big cat.
Yeah. He's a survivor.
Also, Ziggy gets a little bit nervous when he's around.
Understandably.
So we think this is her safe place. So
yeah.
he's
not 5 times the size of her, in fairness. So.
I think he was the one stopping her eating at the bins. Because he certainly manages to eat enough.
Oh, yes.
He's definitely taken up camp on our doorstep.
So we feel adopted now.
Yeah, we feel adopted. We feel he's definitely adopted us rather than the other way around.
Absolutely.
And Ziggy's much
better.
Ziggy's
still fine.
Yeah. Getting scattier and getting far more adventurous. Actually spends over 15 minutes in a go outside now.
She's been down to the barn now.
Yes,
on her own.
Which makes her cry a lot. We don't know quite why that is, but she walks around the barn really meowing. Whether she can sense something in there that she's trying to get hold of or what, I'm not sure, but she makes an awful racket when she's walking around the barn. So that is about it for this week. There will probably be a Targovishti trip next week.
Well, the much anticipated Targovishti bus trip.
Though we have got snow forecast for Tuesday.
So that might put the kibosh on the whole thing.
Yeah, we never know. Then we're going to start panicking about cat food if it does.
Just cat food.
Yeah, we've got plenty of other food, but cats get through it. Now we've adopted the other one as well. We seem to be getting through that at a rate of knots.
Unfortunately, there is no invention this week. There was one planned, one made, one ready to go, and when I actually tried to use
It didn't work.
The materials weren't up to spec. So if we go to Targovishti, I'll get what I need.
There'll be modifications made.
There will be modifications. I'll show you where I went wrong as well. So.
Yeah. But you'll have to wait for that one.
You will. So apologies for that, but good things are coming.
We haven't missed the car. Van, Terry. And Miss Terry. I haven't particularly. I've quite enjoyed walking down to the village. Just worried about cat food.
Cat food, yeah.
That's the only reason I miss it. We're a bit sceptical of telling the people in the village shop that we want to buy cat food, just in case they decide
that we are the people who adopt cats.
Yeah.
And then we get every cat and dog in the area dumped on our doorstep.
On our doorstep, as apparently that has happened in other areas.
So we're trying to avoid that.
Yeah, we're trying to avoid that. Adam thinks I don't need any encouragement.
No.
We've had more post, some belated Christmas cards.
We did. Yeah, that's our week.
That's been our week, yeah. Very quiet, very relaxed. Still loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
we look forward to seeing you next week.
We'll update you next week with anything exciting that may not have happened.
And all the usual non-exciting things that we update you with every week.
Absolutely. So until next week.
Doskoro.
Stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you next week.
We will. Take care.
Bye.
I think you should leave that in the outtakes.
It was very frustrating. But my mum will watch the outtakes as well.
No, but it doesn't matter. Just choice words. That's all we've said.
I'm a good boy, I am.
There were some choice words. But he did eventually get it going.
I'm editing this.
Yeah,
so.
you edited it.